Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today we're embarking on a deep dive into a really vital topic, I think, one that speaks directly to courage. Especially, courage in an age that often seems to want to quiet truths that aren't popular.
Mm-hmm.
We're drawing our insights today primarily from Matthew chapter 10, looking closely at verses 18 through 31.
That's right.
And our guide for this discussion is, well, a specific teaching drawn from that passage. Do not be anxious about the threats of man.
A necessary word, for sure.
Absolutely. This deep dive, we hope, is designed to equip you, our listener, with solid reasons, biblical reasons, to speak truth without fear. Even when, the stakes feel high or when society pushes toward silence, we'll be looking at this through a reformed lens, considering what commentators and theologians have taught on this passage.
That's right. And the main aim Jesus sets out for us here in Matthew 10, which, well, it's very clear.
Wow.
And honestly, it couldn't be more relevant right now. He wants to grant us the fortitude, the strength to declare his truth and to do it with clarity and openness, regardless of what it might cost us personally.
Clarity and openness, those are key.
Definitely. This teaching directly confronts what some scholars call the gut-wrenching fear, and that phrase feels right, doesn't it? The fear of speaking the truth when it might cost us our lives.
That's a heavy thought.
It is. And it's a feel that, as many people observe today, feels increasingly relevant. You see societal tolerance shifting, maybe becoming less accommodating for claims of absolute allegiance to Jesus.
So it's not just abstract theology.
Not at all. We're not talking about just feeling a bit uncomfortable. We're talking about facing a really deep-seated human fear. And if we don't confront it, well, it can stop us from fulfilling a central part of our calling as believers.
Right.
It's a challenge that needs more than just a general sense of be brave. It needs a specific kind of courage, one that's rooted in understanding what Jesus is actually saying here.
Okay, so let's unpack that core instruction then, because it seems like it's the foundation for everything else in these verses.
It really is.
Throughout this section of Matthew 10, Jesus keeps coming back to this basic command. Do not be anxious about the threats of man, or, even more simply, fear not. And what strikes me is the repetition. It's not just once. He says it 3 times, verse 26, verse 28, and verse 31.
That's significant.
It has to be, doesn't it? That repetition, it's not just Jesus trying to add, well, rhetorical flair. It feels like a recognition of how deeply this fear is wired into us.
I think so, too. It's like he knew this would be our biggest struggle, not just for the disciples then, but for us now, something we constantly have to recenter on.
Yeah, a constant recalibration. It's a direct, strong instruction, isn't it?
Yeah.
To overcome that worry, that dread that can just paralyze you when you think about the consequences of following him faithfully.
Exactly. The repetition itself tells you how serious this instruction is and how necessary it is for anyone who really wants to be his disciple, given the world we live in. It's not just a helpful hint, it's foundational.
And it's clear from studying this passage how relevant it is right now, today, like you said, timely. Commentators point out that the pressures against speaking Christ's truth are real. They're not imagined.
Very real.
They suggest the likelihood is growing that tolerance will hold sway for everyone except the person who claims that everyone must give absolute allegiance to Jesus.
That's a chilling thought when you pause on it.
It is. Think about what that means for you, listening. It means holding up the unique claims of Christ, his exclusivity in a society that's often pluralistic or skeptical or even hostile,
Well,
and invite direct opposition.
Right. It moves beyond just, oh, we disagree.
Yeah, it can quickly become active marginalization, being pushed to the edges socially, maybe professionally, or even open hostility, just for stating what Jesus taught.
So this command, fear not, it stops being this abstract religious idea and becomes a very practical, daily necessity for the believer. It hits home in the everyday stuff.
It really does.
And that's a crucial point, because the courage Jesus is talking about here, it isn't just some vague feeling, like psyching yourself up for a difficult meeting.
Right, it's specific.
Very specific. It's courage for a particular action, proclaiming his truth. He tells his followers, what I tell you in the dark, say in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim on the housetops.
Okay, let's break that down. What I tell you in the dark, what you hear whispered. What's he getting at there?
Well, those phrases seem to refer to the intimate personal teachings he gave his disciples, the truths he revealed to them directly, maybe in private moments away from the crowds.
The core instruction, the inside scoop almost.
Kind of, yeah. The foundational wisdom given to those closest to him first.
And then he says, say in the light and proclaim on the housetops.
Right. And that dual instruction plays to two things: clarity and openness. Both are essential.
Okay, clarity first. Say in the light.
It means speaking clearly. No ambiguity, no hedging your bets, no obscure language. It's taking what might have been taught privately and making it understandable for everyone.
No hiding it under a bushel, as he says elsewhere.
Exactly. Strip away the jargon, present the truth plainly, then proclaim on the housetops that points to openness. Doing it publicly.
Not secretly, not in whispers anymore.
Right. In that culture, housetops were, well, the public square in a way. The highest points, visible, audible, places for public announcements. You'd literally shout it from the roof for the whole village to hear.
So he's calling for a bold, public declaration of his teaching.
Absolutely. This isn't a faith meant to be kept private, just between you and God, or only within a small group. It's a faith that demands to be heard. It's inherently public in its scope.
So putting it all together, the command becomes quite stark.
It does. It's basically, don't be afraid to speak clearly and openly what I have taught you, even if it costs you your life. That's the mission. That's what this courage is for.
Wow. Yeah, that is stark.
It's about being a clear, public herald of Christ's message, no matter the consequences. The courage isn't for self-protection or getting ahead in the world. It's for his kingdom, for getting his saving truth out there to a world that needs it.
It's a call to action, then,
Yeah.
rooted in trusting the one giving the command.
Precisely. It's a high calling, no doubt, but unnecessary one if the kingdom of God is to advance.
I think that's a critical point to really let sink in the cost. We've heard the command speak fearlessly, but what exactly are these threats of man Jesus refers to? The things that cause that gut-wrenching fear. Our study of this, looking at various theological perspectives, highlights several potential costs, things that happen when you choose to speak clearly and openly about Jesus' teachings.
And these aren't just hypotheticals. For many throughout church history, and even today, these are lived realities.
Right. First, and maybe this is the most common one for many of us listening in places like ours, simply speaking clearly and openly can just get you in trouble.
Yeah, that resonates.
It might not always be dramatic persecution like we read about elsewhere. Sometimes it's just uncomfortable consequences.
Like what, for instance?
Well, it could be social awkwardness or even ostracization, finding yourself suddenly on the outside of certain groups, maybe at work or in your neighborhood.
The subtle freeze out.
Exactly. Or maybe it's just quiet disapproval from colleagues when your biblical convictions become clear. Or that awkward silence at a family dinner after you voice a perspective that goes against the grain.
Especially if that view is rooted in allegiance to Christ above all else.
Right. That milder form of trouble, it can still be incredibly unsettling. It can be a powerful reason to just keep quiet, avoid the friction.
That daily grind, those small resistances, they can really wear you down and tempt you towards silence, can't they? Just to keep the peace.
They really can. But Jesus also points to more severe possibilities, doesn't he?
He does. Beyond those subtler things, second, he mentions the possibility of being dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles.
Okay, that sounds much more serious. Being forced into a public adversarial setting.
Yeah. Imagine standing before powerful authorities, maybe people openly hostile to your faith, and you're compelled to give an account for believing in Jesus.
It's not a friendly chat.
No, it's often a legal or political confrontation. Your confession of faith itself is on trial. That creates huge pressure. It requires not just courage, but real wisdom, because you're representing Christ before worldly powers.
You see that in Acts, with Peter and Paul before councils and rulers.
Exactly. And history is filled with similar stories. It's a direct clash with worldly systems where your allegiance is tested very publicly.
Then third, he says disciples can expect to be maligned and mistreated.
And he uses his own experience as the prime example.
Right. If they've called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? Beelzebul. That's linking Jesus directly to Satan.
It's deeply offensive. So this isn't just about people disagreeing with you or offering constructive criticism. This is severe insult, false accusation, slander, being demonized.
Commentaries really stress this point, noting it includes the names they call you when you speak out plainly.
Think about that. The attacks are personal. They aim to discredit your character, your sanity, your message itself. Being called evil, hateful, irrational, dangerous, simply for stating biblical truth.
That has to be incredibly painful, discouraging, stirring up that fear Jesus talks about.
It's an attempt to isolate you, to make you ashamed of what you believe.
And then finally, the ultimate cost. Jesus addresses it head on. Losing your life. physical death.
Yeah. He says it directly. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul.
So, he's making it plain. Physical death is a real possibility for those who speak his truth boldly, openly.
And history confirms this, tragically. Countless followers of Jesus have paid that price. From the early martyrs right up to believers facing persecution today, the cross has been a literal reality for many.
So the command isn't to pretend death isn't possible.
No, not at all. It's don't be afraid to speak clearly and openly what I have taught you, even if it costs you your life. That's the stark reality he puts before them. And us.
That definitely demands a courage beyond just normal human bravery.
It requires something supernatural, yes, rooted in a completely different view of life and death.
Which brings us to that crucial distinction Jesus makes, right? About what really matters, what we should really fear.
Exactly. It reorients everything. While the physical costs are significant, even death, Jesus points to a far greater consequence, the cost of not speaking his truth.
Okay.
He explains that opponents can kill the body, sure, but for the believer, the soul remains untouched and happy in God forever.
That's bedrock theology for us. Physical death isn't the end.
Not for the believer. It's not annihilation. It's a transition into God's presence, into eternal blessing. The body might die, but the redeemed soul is perfectly secure in Christ. It's going home.
But then he gives the counterpoint. The danger of silence.
Yes, the terrifying counterpoint. If you choose to keep silent, if you forsake the path of truth, maybe because you've fallen in love with the praise of men, Jesus warns the danger is you could lose your very soul.
Now, we need to be careful here. This isn't saying God snatches salvation away if someone stumbles or feels afraid, is it?
No, that's not how Reformed theology understands it. The warning, as scholars explain, is that a life consistently characterized by prioritizing human approval or worldly comfort over Christ's truth, well, that reveals a heart that may not truly belong to him in the first place.
It's a diagnostic, almost. It shows where your ultimate allegiance lies.
Right. Valuing what people think, or valuing an easy life more than God's truth carries an eternal spiritual price. That far outweighs anything humans can do to your body. The fear of man, if you give into it consistently, can lead to compromises that reveal a lack of genuine saving faith.
So Jesus clarifies who we should fear.
Precisely. He says, rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. This shifts our perspective entirely. Our ultimate fear, our ultimate reverence should be directed towards God alone.
Because his authority is absolute, eternal.
Yeah. Yes. He holds the final say over our physical lives and our eternal destiny. Feeling God properly means revering him, trusting him, obeying him, knowing he has the ultimate claim on us.
And when that divine perspective takes hold,
then the threats of mere humans, finite beings, they start to shrink, don't they? They become secondary concerns against the backdrop of eternity. That understanding is the ultimate foundation for being fearless.
Okay. So, faced with these serious threats and also the sobering warning about silence, how can we possibly obey this command? How can we be fearlessly courageous? It just feels so counter to our natural instinct for self-preservation.
It absolutely is. We naturally shrink back from danger, seek safety, avoid confrontation.
But Jesus doesn't just issue the command and say good luck.
No, thankfully, he provides reasons. 5 compelling reasons. Divine motivations why we can and should have this courage to proclaim his truth.
And these aren't just platitudes, like think positive.
Not at all. These are solid theological foundations rooted in God's character and his promises. They're the anchors that hold us steady when things get rough.
Okay, let's walk through them. 5 reasons for courage.
Let's do it. Each one builds on the last, constructing this platform of confidence despite opposition.
Motivation 1, shared experience with Jesus as a mark of belonging. This first one comes right after what Jesus said about being maligned. He tells us, essentially, they will malign you like they did Jesus. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household, his followers?
Right.
Now, at first hearing, that sounds, well, frankly, discouraging, like another reason to be afraid. Who wants to be called names, smeared, linked with evil?
We naturally recoil from that. We want people to like us or at least respect us. We want good standing.
Yeah, so avoiding those kinds of verbal attacks, maybe softening the message or just staying quiet, that seems like the logical way to avoid the pain of rejection and slander.
Yeah.
It feels isolating, unfair.
It might seem counterintuitive, yeah. But Jesus' reasoning here is actually incredibly encouraging. And Reformed theology helps us see why. Our mistreatment for speaking the truth, It's not some random, meaningless accident that God somehow missed.
Okay.
Instead, Jesus says, it's the same way they treated me. So when we are mistreated for Christ's sake, slandered, rejected, called names because we stand for his truth, he says that very experience is a sign that you belong to me.
Ah, so it's a mark of identification.
Exactly. The horrible names they call you when you speak out plainly actually serve to bind you and me together. They link us to Christ in his suffering.
Wow, that completely reframes it.
It does. It transforms potential fear and shame into a confirmation of our identity in Christ, an affirmation that we're truly his. It becomes a mark of authentic discipleship.
So sharing in that suffering with him gives us strength.
Yes, because it validates our position as his own. It takes the sting out of the world's rejection by showing us we're in the best possible company, the company of Christ himself, who endured far worse for us. We're not alone in it.
That is a powerful way to look at it. It turns a negative into a positive affirmation. Okay, motivation 2. Ultimate vindication of truth. This one sounds hopeful.
It is. It provides that crucial long-term perspective. Jesus says, "So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed or hidden that will not be known."
In our world today, it often feels like truth gets buried, doesn't it?
Mm.
Distorted, spun, lost in the noise.
Mm-hmm. People actively try to hide facts, create false narratives.
And it can feel disheartening when you speak a truth. And it seems like it's immediately shot down, ignored, or maybe even actively suppressed by people with influence. You start wondering if your voice even matters.
It doesn't make any difference. Will the truth ever come out?
Yeah, that sense of futility can creep in, makes silence seem easier, less frustrating.
But this statement from Jesus is a profound assurance. He guarantees that the truth we speak will ultimately triumph. It will be vindicated.
Even if people reject it now, call it names, try to bury it.
Even then, even if the culture works hard to silence it, push it aside, declare it dangerous, Jesus essentially says, take heart. Be encouraged in the cause of truth, because in the end, all truth will be revealed. All reality will be uncovered.
And those who spoke it.
And those who spoke it with clarity and openness will be vindicated. It's a promise of divine revelation and ultimate justice.
So the truth of Christ, no matter how unpopular now.
It will stand triumphant eventually. That future certainty helps us overcome the fear we feel right now when we face opposition. We know our efforts aren't wasted.
Because we're speaking something eternal, undeniable.
Exactly. It's like knowing the final score of the game before it even starts. You know who wins in the end.
That kind of certainty really frees you up, doesn't it? To just be faithful now.
It does. To play with everything you've got, knowing the outcome is secure.
That's liberating, knowing the record will be set straight. Okay, next, motivation 3. Limited power of human opponents. Fear not, you can only be killed.
Yeah, this one is stark, direct, but strangely liberating too.
Jesus says, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul.
Right. Now, humans have a deep fear of death. It feels like the ultimate end.
And that fear can be used as a weapon, can't it? To silence truth.
Absolutely. The threat of physical harm, torture, execution, it's been used throughout history to force people into silence or compromise. The very idea of losing your life for a belief, it can cause a paralyzing dread, makes compromise look sensible.
Just preserve your life, at least for now.
But Jesus cuts right through that. His instruction means, look, the absolute worst thing your opponents can do to you when you speak the truth is kill your body.
Which sounds pretty bad.
It does from an earthly perspective, but Jesus immediately adds the qualifier. That action leaves the soul untouched and happy in God forever.
Ah, the eternal perspective again.
Exactly. For the believer, physical death isn't defeat. It's not annihilation. It's simply a dispatch to paradise. A transition from struggle here to eternal joy with God.
It completely reorients your view of what constitutes real harm.
It does. The real horror isn't what people can do to your physical body, because your soul, your true self, is beyond their reach. It's secure in Christ.
But in contrast,
Jesus warns, if you choose silence out of fear, if you forsake truth for human approval, you could lose your very soul. That prioritizing of man's opinion or personal comfort over God's truth, that carries an eternal spiritual price.
a price far greater than physical death.
Infinitely greater. So Jesus clarifies who we should truly fear. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Our ultimate fear belongs to God alone.
So it shifts our fear away from finite humans.
And redirects it toward God, whose authority is eternal. This perspective liberates us from fearing human threats because it shows how limited they really are in the grand scheme of things.
That's a radical shift in priorities. Seeing death as a doorway, not just an end.
Okay, motivation 4. God's close and intimate attention. Even the hairs of your head are all numbered.
This one brings such deep personal comfort, doesn't it? Through this image of God's meticulous care.
It does, because when you're suffering, facing opposition, paying a cost for speaking truth, it's easy to feel alone, forgotten, like your struggle is just too small to be noticed.
Does God really see my specific situation? Does he care about my sacrifice among billions of people in cosmic events?
Right. The temptation is to feel like your individual pain is insignificant to the Creator, which can lead to feeling abandoned, maybe despairing.
And that feeling of being alone in the fight can definitely erode your resolve to keep speaking out.
But this imagery counters that directly. God is giving close and intimate attention to all you do.
It's incredibly reassuring. Any suffering you face for speaking truth isn't because God is disinterested or unaware. He's not distant or detached.
He's close enough to number the hairs on your head. Exactly. Think about that level of detail. Every single hair. It's astonishing. It means he is intimately acquainted with every part of you, every pain, every struggle, every tear you cry.
Not just general oversight, but personal, granular attention.
Yes. He is close, he is interested, he cares deeply. Knowing that intimate awareness from God gives such a profound sense of security. It removes the fear of being overlooked or abandoned.
And that security motivates you.
It motivates us to speak truth, whatever the cost, because we know our ultimate well-being is held safely in the hands of a God who sees us, knows us, and values us beyond measure. He's truly present, always.
That makes God feel incredibly personal, incredibly near.
Yeah.
A truly comforting thought. Okay, finally, motivation 5. God's sovereign will over all events. Not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will.
This fifth reason grounds our courage in God's ultimate control, his absolute sovereignty over everything.
Jesus uses the example of sparrows. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father.
Such a common, seemingly insignificant event, a sparrow falling.
And then he connects it directly to us. Fear not, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows.
Right. We live in a world that often feels chaotic, random, unpredictable. Bad things happen seemingly without reason. It can leave you feeling vulnerable, powerless.
We crave control, certainty, and when we don't feel we have it, anxiety sets in. We become reluctant to put ourselves in harm's way for truth because it feels like stepping into, well, the dangerous unknown.
But Jesus' point here is profoundly theological and especially comforting from a Reformed view of God's sovereignty. He's saying God actively governs the world right down to the smallest details, like a bird falling.
It's not passive permission, it's active governance.
Exactly. Therefore, the implication is, as theologians explain, no harm can befall you but what God wills. Nothing happens outside his sovereign decree.
That confidence, that's fueled believers for centuries, hasn't it?
Immensely. It removes the fear of random chance or the fear that evil might ultimately win. It means every challenge, every suffering, even every breath we take is under the direct, purposeful, and gracious will of our Father.
We often hear that quote from Henry Martin the missionary.
Yes. If God has work for me to do, I cannot die. That captures the conviction perfectly. It means, in a sense, we are immortal until the work God has for us is done.
No opponent, no threat, no circumstance can actually stop God's purpose for your life until his work through you is finished.
That truth frees us from anxiety about what might happen. It lets us focus simply on being faithful right now, knowing our lives are ultimately secure in his sovereign, loving hand. He holds it all.
Okay, so those are 5 massive pillars for courage. But Jesus also gives something more specific, doesn't he? For those really extreme moments.
He does. For when disciples are actually dragged before governors and kings, that specific scenario he mentioned earlier.
Which isn't hypothetical for everyone.
Yeah.
That happens. And you can imagine the anxiety, what do I say? How do I defend myself? How do I represent Christ well under that pressure?
The fear of saying the wrong thing, of failing. It would be overwhelming. The dry mouth, the racing heart.
But Jesus gives this remarkable promise right there.
He does. He says, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour.
Wow. So divine help with the actual words.
Yes. In those high-stakes moments, divine enablement provides the very words needed. It's not about memorizing scripts or relying on your own cleverness. It's a supernatural provision of wisdom and speech right when it's needed most.
That takes the burden off you, doesn't it?
Completely. It removes the burden of performance or self-reliance in the toughest times. You can just trust God to supply what's needed. You become a vessel for His truth, knowing He'll provide the words.
And this whole idea ties into the nature of truth itself, which Jesus also addresses. You mentioned commentators warning us not to yield to the spirit of the age that moves us into peaceful silence when the truth is being trampled.
Right. That cultural pressure is strong, isn't it? The push to avoid conflict, to prioritize social harmony, even if it means compromising or silencing God's word.
The idea that if speaking truth causes division, maybe silence is more loving.
Jesus completely shatters that illusion.
How so?
Well, in verse 34, he says something startling. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword.
A sword. That sounds aggressive.
It does, but we need to understand what he means. Theologians are clear. This sword is not the sword of steel. It's not a call to violence or earthly warfare.
Okay, so what is it?
It's the sword of truth that gives life to all who believe. It's the piercing, dividing nature of the gospel message itself.
Meaning that truth, when it's proclaimed, inherently divides.
It can't help but divide. It draws a line in the sand. It separates those who receive it and find life from those who reject it and position themselves as opponents. It separates light from darkness, belief from unbelief.
So the truth itself might not bring worldly peace.
It often doesn't, but it brings spiritual life, and that often comes at the cost of friction in the world. The truth itself, by its nature, cuts to the heart, reveals where people truly stand, and demands a decision.
Which underscores again why fearless proclamation is so necessary. You can't dilute the sword.
You can't. Its very nature requires it to be wielded clearly and openly.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening right now as you go about your week?
Well, Jesus' command still stands, doesn't it? And it's backed up by these incredibly solid reasons to obey it with joy, with courage.
We are to love the truth, he implies. And what you learn from Jesus in the solitude, speak from the housetop.
And that's not just for big public moments. It applies everywhere truth is challenged or pushed aside. Casual conversations, online discussions, workplace meetings.
And the core command remains. Do not fear the face of any man.
Be free from intimidation, regardless of who they are, their status, their anger, their influence, their ability to make trouble for you. It's about liberation from the fear of what people think or might do.
So maybe a point for reflection for everyone listening.
Yeah, consider this. Where in your life, small interactions, maybe bigger conversations, are you tempted to stay silent when truth is being suppressed or twisted?
Could be a theological truth, a moral truth, maybe something about Christ's teaching that's just not popular right now.
And then think, how might these 5 reasons Jesus gives actually equip you? How might remembering that mistreatment connects you to Him?
That truth will win out in the end.
That human power is ultimately limited.
That God cares for you intimately, down to the hairs on your head.
And that His sovereign will directs everything. How might knowing these things equip you to speak with more clarity, more openness?
Knowing that your ultimate safety, your ultimate vindication rests entirely in His hands.
It really comes down to weighing the cost of silence against the cost of speaking and aligning your fear correctly, fearing God alone, the one who holds everything together.
That's a challenging but also freeing thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Reformed thinking.
Thank you.
Until next time.